One of the big mistakes that people make in estate planning is they think, okay, I've signed my will, I've signed my trust, I'm through, that's it, it's over with. Put it in the drawer or let the attorney keep it. That's a mistake that we talked about in one of our other videos. But you're not through once you've signed that piece of paper. You're only halfway there. 80–90% of the people who get a living revocable trust, for example, they get it so they can avoid probate. They don't avoid probate. They go through probate just like everybody else does. When I looked at my father-in-law's trust, my father-in-law got a trust in the, actually it was 1976, and I looked at it in the early 80s. By the way, I've been doing this for a long time. I'm Lee Phillips. I'm an attorney. I've helped literally hundreds and hundreds of people do their estate planning. But my father-in-law got his trust in the early 80s, in 76, and he spent today's dollars about $8,500 for this living revocable trust. Actually, he got a good one. Fortune magazine reports that less than 1% of American lawyers know how to draw a good living revocable trust. Problem is, when I looked at it in the early 80s, he'd spent his $8,500 on nothing because the lawyer hadn't taught him how to use the trust. Oh, my father-in-law, he sat there, he argued with me. No. My attorney taught me how to use the trust. No, the attorneys never teach you how to use the trust. It's a conflict of interest. Look, if they don't teach you how to use the trust, then they get the $8,500 for setting up the trust, and when you die, they get all of the probate too. It's a double dip. It's a conflict of interest. So don't tell me your attorney taught you how to use the trust. One. Two, even if he did teach you, 90% of the time you ain't using it right, or you're not using it at all. You just put it in the file cabinet when you got it home. By the way, you've got to have both a will and a trust, so don't let me confuse you there. If you get a living revocable trust, you're always going to have what's called a pour-over will. It's called a pour-over will because the will doesn't actually distribute the property. If you don't use your trust right, and we have to take property through probate, then the pour-over trust will allow us to go through the probate process, and then it doesn't distribute the property equally to the kids and all this and that and the other. What it does is it pours everything over into the living revocable trust, and we still use the living revocable trust to distribute everything. So you're going to have a will and a trust. You're always going to have both of them. And by the way, a lot of people think they're getting a living revocable trust. They're actually getting what's called testamentary trust. That does not avoid probate. It's a setup. It's the lawyer's big setup because they get to charge you the big bucks for the trust up front, and then when you die, it's guaranteed they get all of the probate. So make sure you know what a testamentary trust. In my book, I go through what a testamentary trust is for you. You're going to be able to smell one of those babies in the dark. Because the last thing you probably want is the testamentary trust. So you get the trust, you think you got your trust, you think everything's fine. Lady walks into me, sits at my desk, April 15. That tell you anything? Husband's died that year. She and her husband been living in the rest home for years. There's no house, there's no cars, there's no nothing. All this lady has is $100,000 in treasury bonds. She and her husband have spent their whole life saving these bonds. So husband dies, daughter, widow, they go down to the local banker and lawyer. And the local banker and lawyer set them up. They said, lady, you don't want to go through probate with these bonds, you want a living revocable trust. So they gave her a simple single living revocable trust. And I talk about how important it is in the book for singles to have the trusts as well as couples. Now you do them differently, so we've got to work both angles on that. But they gave her this single living revocable trust. Then this banker and lawyer were brilliant. They said, okay, we know how to do this. The trust has to own the bonds, and that's one of the things that you would have to do to use the trust. Trust has to own the bonds. The way you get the trust to own the bonds is you sell the bonds and you buy them back in the name of the trust. What did they do? 50 years of interest clocks. There's no tax until you sell the bonds. She paid $32,000 in income taxes that year, and there wasn't a thing I could do about it. The idiot banker and lawyer, they didn't know. All you do is you take the form, I've got a form for you in the book, request for issue United States Savings Bonds / notes, name of the trustee. You send it into the Federal Reserve Bank, they change the name on the bond. No tax, no nothing. So in the book, I go in and I teach you about how to move assets into the trust, how to use the trust. It's an easy read. I give you the cute little stories. It's not hard. In fact, the book's been a Time Warner Book of the Month Club book, which means Time Warner thinks that every little old lady ought to read it in her book club. So it's a very readable, it's a fun book. The stories are funny, they make you laugh, they make you cry, but you need to know how to use the trust. The mistake people make is they get the trust and the will, they get the trust and the will, put them in the filing cabinet, forget about them. If you're doing that, you're wasting your money. Your lawyer never taught you about it. Your legal doom, the internet websites, they never teach you about it. They generate a piece of paper for you off of 10 questions. And by the way, it just irks me. This is your estate, everything you've worked your whole life for, and you want fast and easy so that it takes you only 10 minutes to manage everything you've worked your whole life for? I don't think so, guys. You need to get the trust, you need to learn how to use it, you need to walk through it step by step. The mistake you make is you sign it and you think, I'm over, I'm through. That's not the way it's supposed to be. Don't fall into that trap. Look at the other mistakes that people can make. Get the book, go through it step by step.